So what we'll do is we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance real quick. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do we have any citizen concerns? I assume you might be here to talk about.
Yeah.
If you want to come up to the podium and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure.
Grab my notepad.
My name is Roger Bowers, 758 Maple Street. Been a resident of Perrysburg since 1956 and I love it here. I'm the proud owner of a house on Maple. Was across from the old football field, if anybody remembers that. I used to actually park there for my football games that we went to. Now I own the property there with my wife. Been there over 40 years. And you want to know my concern today?
Yep.
And I met with Alice from the water department on October the 1st, telling her that I was going to be using abnormal water at my residence, and that I specified in the beginning it'd probably be a month, wasn't sure how long. So my problem was the army worms. I don't know if you're familiar with those or not, but I have a half-acre lot, which is my pride and joy. And they just ate the heck out of my lawn, devastated it. It's still mud right now because I don't have grass there. So Alice and I went back and forth with making visits to her and figuring out how we're going to handle. I was requesting the abatement of sewage on my water bill because I was watering my lawn. So she actually sent me a statement with what it would be for the period. And I calculated my 9-month usage of water at 322 cubic feet a month. And their calculation's like 400, so that means, so we have a little bit difference in numbers. And Miss or Mrs. Cabbage, the cadet,
Yes.
I'm sorry. She reviewed it and denied it, although it already had a calculation of it on paper. So today I'm requesting refund of the usage. My usage as calculated by the city was 400 cubic feet a month, and mine was up to 2,000. And the following month was 700. I never had numbers like that, but I was advised by the landscaping company to fertilize and water. I was trying to save my half-acre of grass, and I'd actually sent pictures to Alice, and I have. Can I show you one picture? What is in common? This was my backyard, and it went up even closer to the house, and that shows these army worms eat all the stems of the grass. They say they leave the roots, but they might have left some, but they ate a lot of stuff. And that's big.
Yeah.
And then 2 months before that, it was lush and green. I was actually raking up grass. So,
Sorry. Okay.
all that brown.
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, we thought it was like drought, but then it just spread like crazy. So, I'm asking for the sewer to be waived on my usage of and above normal. And like I said, I had 322 cubic feet for 9 months. And that comes out to one number. And then the 400 that the city said we had, that comes out to another number. One was like $109 and the other was it ranged from went up to 136. Wait a minute, that's not right. Sorry. It's the second plate. Got too much paper. The city, you also used a much longer calculation period than I did. I had 9 months available. I thought that was adequate. And they had years of data. So, I mean, I had high numbers in that, years of data that have never been replicated. So, that's my story.
Thank you. I think we'll probably have a discussion up here on, so you're requesting a credit for the sewer fees for what would have been used for the actual water.
Right.
And just to put a point of clarification as well, I know that the way we have things set up, I shouldn't say clarification, but for the water that you use to water your lawn, do you have a separate meter for sprinklers?
No, I don't
Okay.
water my lawn in Perrysburg.
Okay. So so just as a point of reference as well, I do know that if you don't have that second meter, you get a 30% discount on the sewer, assuming that you're going to be using 30% of your water for the use. I know that this seems to be above and beyond what his normal use was. So I'm kind of curious to see what everyone's thoughts is. I'm trying to look up our credit policies, right, or the ordinance right now, and maybe our law director knows a little bit more on how our code is written.
I do have one quick question before you do that. You just want it for, how many months did you water your lawn?
For October and a month and a half.
Okay.
So I'm
And I
looking,
advised Alice that I was going to be doing another half month.
I do actually have the copy of the,
I have a copy of the bills.
I have the breakdown here.
One
So,
was 2,000
yes,
and the following.
Chris Bowers? Is that sent to all of them?
I just got that today from Bridget.
The first month was,
So it looks like it was $136.30 for the October for the sewer charge and $47.20 for the November one. Typically, the charge is fluctuates between $20 to $28 a month for the sewer.
So anything could be relatively, anything over $28.
wait a minute. I'm not following it.
I'm just looking at the sewer charges from the prior.
Okay.
So they,
I mean, one month was $2,000 usage, and the following one was 700 cubic feet.
no, and I'm looking at the prior ones before you actually use the water. So it fluctuates between a charge of $27.26 to $20.45 as well. And that's going back all the way to 2020. So October of 2020, it was $27.26 was the sewer charge.
Sewer charge is this month and a half.
Yeah, the sewer charge for that month and a half was $136.30 and $47.70.
Just give it anything over 28. refund it back?
So, I don't do it very.
So, Kate or Alice, do either of you know when someone has a swimming pool and then they need special supply to refill it every spring or in case they fix the pool? Is there a provision where if someone calls and says, hey, I'm going to be filling my pool, that we give them a little leeway?
If someone, Councilman Van Huzen, if we're going to, someone request that, we tell them to rent the hose and the hydrant meter and fill off a hydrant. And then that way they pay for they estimate the amount of water, they pay for that up front, and then they bring the hydrant meter back, and if the usage is less than that, we give them a credit. If it's more than the estimate, then we charge them the additional. But then they just pay for the water alone.
So has it been that way since you've been here? Or,
So yes,
okay.
we can have pool fills.
because so if someone needs extra water, like we did on Maple, from the decisions that have been made, we don't have any provisions for that.
No.
Okay.
Other than to have them come to council and ask for, correct? The committee?
I'm trying to actually look up the rules right now. Do you know what section the rules are when it comes to this? Because I'm having a hard time finding it. Is that 1040.07 or?
It's 1060.062 are all the rules, and then.
Yeah, but that's for the water though, so is the sewer,
Well, that's where the administrative authority is for sewer credits below $1,000. And off the top of my head, I can't remember which rule it is. Which rule number.
because I was trying to find it here, I'm struggling to find it myself.
What about a house flood?
I actually saw it, no, I can't remember where I saw it.
What I have to do is make certain that any decision we make here abides by what our
I had
code
a
is.
house flood once and that was covered.
So yeah, if you have a water backup and it's an accidental, I know that one is something that we usually can,
So, Mr. President, when we've had other, in the last couple of years, situations where there was excessive water, we weren't ever able to find a provision to allow for that.
correct. The sewer is a different one.
Oh, this is a question of sewer though.
Yes.
So,
And that's, so with yeah, we can't forgive a water credit because Toledo won't forgive us.
right.
Sewer is something that we have within our authority. I just want to make certain that I understand what that authority is, because the only concern that I have, and I want to try to find a way to help them, is if we start doing this, I know we automatically put that 30% credit on the sewer if you don't have the water sprinkler meter.
Right.
That we could open up to say, all right, anybody can come in and show that they used more during the summer months to water their lawn, that they hadn't had water because we had a drought, let's say. I'm trying to look at, all right, what type of provisions or protection?
Councilman, it's Rule 28.
28, thank you. That's really my only concern, is what type of Pandora box could potentially open.
Right.
The concern that I would have as law director is to just bring to your attention that it says, the amount of water registered by a meter shall be charged and paid in full, irrespective of whether such water, after having been registered, was lost by leakage, accident, or otherwise. Adjustments to water bills other than those covered by Rule 19 thereof shall be at the discretion of council, except that the director shall have the authority to adjust bills if the total amount of issues, water and sanitary charge combined, is $1,000 or less, and inform the Health, Sanitation, Public Utilities Committee of his decision.
What the rule
You know, that talks about water. It's,
That's the rule that we use because we don't give credit for water.
exactly, and we shouldn't, because if their
The
meter says.
adjustment to the bill is for a sewer credit
Exactly.
off of that rule, but we bill sewer based off of the amount of water that someone consumes, which is how we make the adjustment to the sewer. So in situations where you have given credit in the past, you have done it in situations where it was a leak or the cause was unknown, such as a leaky,
Toilet?
toilets don't work because they go into the sanitary sewer and these have to be water going into the stormwater, not the
Like-
sanitary sewer.
Like a outside spigot on last winter because your
Outside
kid
spigot got
left it
left
on.
on, or the,
Sump pumps is another one.
sump pump, or the yard, breaks the
Irrigation line, breaking the irrigation.
breakage in the irrigation line, is when you have in the past given credit. When it was, the cause was not intentional and it was not known.
Always non-sanitary.
It has to be non-sanitary because the argument for giving the credit is that water did not flow into the sanitary sewer system, it flew into the stormwater sewer system, and therefore, the credit is that it didn't go into sanitary sewer and therefore does not need to be charged.
So here's my thought, I'm reading through this, it says was lost by leakage, accident, or otherwise. What would be the definition of otherwise at that point?
You're watering your lawn?
Yeah.
I mean, to put in a separate meter is quite expensive.
It is.
Than to have it,
And honestly, if you're not watering your lawn as often, it would be more expensive for you to keep it, a separate meter on.
plus you have to wire water, pipe it to each spigot. Make it be useful.
Mhm.
Can you imagine how much plumbing that would be?
I could see your argument about a slippery slope
Yeah.
with a dry period. People saying they're watering their yards and they want,
The only difference I really see is that looking at the history, even going back to the year before, I don't think Mr. Bowers here has watered his lawn typically. If anything, the highest bill I've seen on here was June of 2020 at 2020 at 3407.
How many cubic feet is it?
Let's see, that was 500.
Okay,
And then October 19 was the same 500, which is the maximum amount that was used. One of the thoughts I would have is, if we do something, I mean, we're looking back at over 2-year period, refund the sewer credit of up to that $500, or $500, but
In excess.
in excess of the 500, which was the maximum usage that we've had.
I would agree.
That way, it limits a Pandora box type scenario.
Yeah.
And shows this as a one-time credit for that, or one-time credit for that period of time up to that 500
Yeah.
cubic, what's the term I'm looking for? What am I blanking on?
I haven't used 500 in the last 9 months.
I understand, but I'm looking back at usage from last year during the summer months, and that was the highest point at that.
Well,
So I think you had 2,000 in October, 700 in November.
right.
Do we know what the November numbers were?
Yeah, so the November was at 700 and the October was 2,000. My thought is we cut the sewer charge
Anything over.
to 500
Right.
for each of those months,
Right.
which would take off about $110 or something.
And that would also not open up Pandora's box. so-
Yeah, 'cause we unfortunately can't forgive the water charge,
Yeah.
but we could do, I would suggest doing that, going at the highest point in that last, do it as a one-time credit. I don't know if this is something we want to do often, but
Exactly. And the fact is, if we apply that measure to all of them, then we might not, like you said.
If I had 2,700 minus 800 for two, you're saying I had four, say you had 400 a month, that leaves 1,900 at $129. If you take it for my last 9 months usage, it's 2,700 minus 644 for the 2 months. But my 9-month average is 322.
So I don't know if we can necessarily go off the average. My thought is we go off of the highest usage that you had during the last summer, just so that way it's applying a more consistent, this is my thought, and anybody can shoot me here if you want to right now. But looking at the amount of water that you used in the last summer cycle, to say that, well, the maximum, the last 2 summer cycles, I should say, is 500 cubic feet of water, and applying that to reducing the October and November from 700 to 500, and the October from 2,000 to 500. And just keeping it as that is the most that you would be paying in general, unless someone else has another thought or suggestion.
I think that's, I was just confused. So are you saying that you get credit for anything over 500 for each of those months?
Anything over each of those months, he would get a credit for anything that's above 500
Okay. I
cubic.
just want to make sure
Yeah.
utilities understand.
How can you take my highest one for the whole year or whatever?
So,
Are you using October?
I mean, do you get average miles per gallon in your car, or do you get it the instant you look at it?
so here's the scenario I'm looking at right now, or if we start to look at this as anytime anybody waters their lawn, that they're going to come back here to say, I want a credit. If we went on an average, there's, even on a 9-month average, you're not watering your lawn in January. You're not watering your lawn in February. My thought is we look at a rolling summertime. If you do any average, you're doing it either on the summertime, but if you're doing an average, then there's still that difficulty of when do you start watering lawn and when wouldn't you, based off of the season. So when I'm looking at this, I see the highest point in the summer that was used to water usage in the last couple of years was at 500 cubic feet.
I didn't, July and August, I only used 200 cubic feet a month.
And I see that as well, and I see in May it was 400, but looking at last year, in October it was 400. I mean, we could, if council wanted to do 400, we could do 400. My suggestion was just to do the 500 that was used in June of 2020. But if council wants to do 400, I mean, I'll go with what the rest of the committee wants.
You found another 500 in 2019?
Yes.
In the summer, fall?
So that other 500 was actually in October of 2019. And so it would have been around that same time period potentially.
I'm fine with
I
that.
am too.
Okay. I know it's not necessarily 100% what you want, but we're going to cut it. I think the recommendation coming to council would be to cut that down to 500.
How
each
much
of
is
those.
the refund gonna be?
I'd have to look at Alice to calculate what that would be at 500 cubic feet.
Yeah, so it'll be anything over 500, you get refunded.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at this, I'm just going to do
Another $15.60.
that's 3407 is what it was the year before, assuming that there wasn't any rate changes, but,
So they're like,
okay. So for the October one, it looks like about $102, give or take a few dollar.
another $13.
And yeah, so it's about $150 roughly credit just for the sewer. Does that sound about right?
$122.67.
Okay, $122.67 credit.
For just the water for both.
That would be total.
Are you coming up with a figure per month then, or not?
That would be the total for October and the November one. That's at least what Alice.
I mean, how's it? So how many feet are you giving me credit for on that 2,000,
1,500.
1,500?
Yeah.
That's the sewer rate
Yeah.
at .03815, 03, 185.
I'm sorry, I don't follow. Are you reading off the calculation of?
I just divided the bill by the footage.
Not sure what number they
Yeah.
use.
How much is it, how much is the sewer rate credit calculated?
$6.81.5 per 100 cubic foot. And now this would be a credit of 1,800 cubic feet times 6.815 is
It's
130.
1,700 cubic feet if I got my math right.
What do you got? A month?
Well, I had figured that,
Okay.
if it would happen, I had figured an average of 400. And
Because we were going to credit 1,500 off of October and 200 off of November's.
He wants to cap it at $500 and give
yes,
credit for anything over 500 for October and November.
okay.
So it's 1,700.
So that's credit for 1,700.
What's the rate?
It's $6 and something.
681 is what,
$115.85.
Okay.
That's different than anything I calculated, but
But I do appreciate coming in, and we'll make that motion at the next council meeting during our Public Utilities Committee portion of that. I'll make the motion to do that, and then it'll be adopted by council at that point, hopefully. But I'm assuming that's a 3-0 recommendation at this point.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So all you need is one more, and we should be good. So, but I appreciate you coming in and filling us in, and if anybody has any questions, council, just Kate or Alice, if you get any questions on this, send them to me. I'll be more than happy to talk to any council members on it. Thank you. So next item we have is another sewer credit appeal at 114 Wentworth Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first sewer credit is on Wentworth. At this property, the homeowner submitted a letter and documentation of repair costs. It was backup water powered sump pump that ran for extended period due to a failure of the primary sump pump and a broken check valve. The dollar request is $2,103.60. And because it's over 500, the dye test was conducted and confirmed it does not go to the sanitary sewer.
Is there any question on this one?
no,
Assuming 3-0 recommendation on this one as well?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the next one is 900 Wood Sorrel Lane. Again, water powered backup sump pump ran due to failure of the primary sump pump. It was over $500, so a dye test was required, and that confirmed it did not enter the sanitary sewer. And the request is for $1,134.85.
Any questions on this
No.
one?
nope.
So it'll be a 3-0 recommendation as well.
Okay.
And we have the sewer credit tabulation, so Scott, see if you want to fill us in on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one on Delaware, water-powered backup sump pump. Cost was $356.90, and that was approved on November 19th. So it brings the total year-to-date up to $5,860.
Thank you very much. Where am I at? I've lost all my paperwork. Everything's everywhere right now.
Rate, water and sewer rate.
All right, thank you. Water and sewer rate legislation. I know we all got to hear about this for 2 committee meetings and 1 council meeting. Any updates on
Does
this?
anybody have any questions? We've heard this presentation 3 times, this group.
No.
This is simply the legislation that would change the water rate, the sewer rate, and what is called the collection rate. There's a small section of the city that we collect sewer, but the actual treatment of the sewer is done by Lucas County. It's part of our Northwest Water and Sewer District thing. So those collection rates would be adjusted as well. And it's all based on the recommendations from the water and sewer rate study that was done.
I really don't have too many questions. The only thing is, with speaking of the Northwest Water Sewer District, is I know that some of our city residents have bills from both entities.
They do, yes.
I know we're in negotiations right now.
We are, yes.
Hopefully, there's some things that we can do to reprieve those double bills. Or at least, I don't want to say reprieve, but is there any talks of the city being able to take over or anything that we can do to try to help limit those double billings?
It's very difficult to get a utility company to
I
give
understand.
up
I at least want to put the question out there and the thought.
something that makes them money.
Especially when it's, they're charging more than what we would.
Yeah.
Even with the rate increases.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring that up. I know that there's some conversation with the, hopefully the cost savings that we'll get with that direct connection with Toledo, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
matter as well.
Yes.
So I'm looking for the date. When do these rates change? I know the ordinance.
If you pass it as an emergency measure on Tuesday, it goes into effect January 1st. If you want 3 readings, I'll have to change the date from January 1st to whatever the,
What if we just don't pass it as an emergency measure?
then you're just screwing with me, because you can. If you don't pass it as an emergency measure, it would be 30 days after, I think the meeting is December 7th, does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
So it would be January 7th, so we would have to change the dates.
Is there any reason to pass it as an emergency at this point?
Did you say 2 or not 2?
Any reason to pass it as an emergency? 'Cause I don't know if that's something I want to put down as emergency or rate change.
You don't have to,
Well, we bill the first of the month, Mr. Chairman, we bill the first of the month, so if it's not,
We'll
if it's
change-
January 7th, then it would take effect until February 1st.
so it would change. It would be helpful if I knew that before Tuesday, just so that I.
My suggestion, we make it start February 1st. I don't want to put something through as an emergency when it's going to be a
Yeah.
rate change.
I agree, this is gonna cause some talk.
Yeah, I would think that the public should have some more input.
Do you want 3 readings, or do you just want to present
I'm
it?
comfortable with 1 because we've had 3
Yeah,
different conversations on this, unless anybody else,
No.
if I don't have unanimous on that within the committee, I would be comfortable with giving more, or not even committee.
So 1 reading, and the first change will take place February 1st, but following years, it will always be January 1st. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense.
yep,
Is that acceptable with everyone? Because
yeah, no,
I understand your reasoning.
I do too, I
I think
agree.
that is good logic, sir.
I understand it totally, and I.
you got that on the record, make sure that that's put down to compliments.
Because that doesn't happen very often.
That's exactly right. And I want to make sure I take it home to my wife and show her that I can actually have some logic, so.
And then actually, he's actually right for once.
That's right.
It's the end of the year, I have to be nice. Santa's coming. Okay, so all 3 forward, non-emergency, 1 reading.
Correct.
February 1st.
3-0 recommendation, with,
Got
unless
it.
there's an objection.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so return to items review. All my stuff's out of order, so I have no idea where we are at this point.
There's no handout with that.
Oh,
Okay.
that's why we can't find it, yeah.
And that's when we talk about,
Oh, this is the delinquent chapter.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, yeah, as I'm sure some of you have had heard, there was some conversations that have been had about a delinquent check and an immediate shut-off happening soon after. I know that I've heard from Kate, the mayor, Alice on this, and hopefully Kate can fill in a little bit, but from my understanding is that per the code, that 1060.06 Rule 24B, I got it memorized correctly, that a shut-off can't occur until the 13th month after the next billing cycle, or 13th day, not month, there's no 13th month. And that is what's going to be used moving forward on this, if I understand correctly, and the $20 turn-on fee was waived for this individual.
Well, it was refunded.
A refund,
It was
yeah.
taken in. He gets a credit on his
Now,
account.
there was some question as to it being on the bill.
Yes,
Yeah, so the other thing that
and that's a question for
I
Alice,
pointed
because I
out
don't
to
print the
Kate,
bill.
and is on the back of our bills, it states that if you have an NSF, that there is a possible immediate shut-off. And I believe that's wording that should be changed, and hopefully Alice can comment on that.
Mr. Chairman, yes, that language is on the back of the bill. I don't know what our stock of printed bills is, but we can look at that when those come up. Because we do want to use the printed stock that we have.
Okay.
Wouldn't act on that statement on the back of the bill.
Okay.
I have mixed feelings on this. Forget to pay a bill, there's a big difference between someone, in this case, it was a bank draft that bounced. It wasn't even a check, which to me is a lot worse.
So the legislation for or the ordinance for the city of Perrysburg says delinquent account. It
So we
does
have
not
to-
specifically say what the cause of the delinquent account is, and that all delinquent accounts should be treated the same. I don't think that it behooves the city to make different rules for why accounts are or are not delinquent.
Oh, I agree.
So long as we have a policy that we follow. It's a fairly well-written ordinance, the way it is, in that we mail letters 2 weeks beforehand and we don't shut off prior to the 13th day of the following month. It eliminates issues such as this, that there wasn't enough warning given, that people didn't have enough chance to rectify the situation.
I agree with it, but my question is this, and maybe one of you guys tell me the answer. I was told there's a process where you could apply for a shut-off moratorium through the federal government for certain groups of people. And utility, you cannot shut off any utilities. I'm trying to think like disadvantaged groups. I can't think, like, in the wintertime with, how they have the programs with the heat and electric, and I'm told that water is also part of this. You know what I'm talking about?
Actually, Councilwoman Maturity, I'm not familiar with what this clause is, if it's new. There was, as you recall, in 2020, the state of Ohio put a moratorium on shutoffs, but then that was lifted in July of last year. So we did have a moratorium on shutoffs for a few months last year by state order. But I'm not familiar with federal language.
Let me see if I can find it. Because I thought there was, if income, it was based upon income requirements that you could register with the federal government.
I'm not aware of this.
Let me see if I got it in my notes.
While you're looking that up, one of the things that I do appreciate that the Public Utilities Department does is with these shutoffs, that put those door hangers on. The question that I wanted to ask, is that something that we should have as part of the actual ordinance itself as a required practice, or just continue to let that be administrative practice?
Until it becomes a problem, I think administrative is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
If this was a repeat issue, then maybe. But I think this is an isolated incident.
I was
I'm fine with that. I wanted to have that conversation to put that out there.
Would you
I think
please
that is
repeat what you said?
that to put in an ordinance that with the delinquent accounts along with the 2-week letter to actually put the door hangers out.
Oh, yeah, I agree totally.
To put that in as an ordinance, or do you want to just keep it as administrative function until it becomes a problem?
The door hanger?
Yeah.
Do you think it's needed?
I don't think it's needed in the legislation because I believe, as Councilman Van Huzen stated, this was an isolated incident and they're going to continue to do door hangers with the letters. So at this time, barring,
So essentially, we have the commitment that that's going to continue
Yes.
to be the practice.
Yes.
I'm comfortable with that
Yeah.
until we start to see it become a problem.
unless it becomes a problem, and
But-
then we can discuss a change.
I also believe it should be a no-knock door hanger.
I think that's what they have it as.
Yeah.
right
I
now.
don't believe we should change that part of it, is what I'm saying.
No, if we're having a letter going out coupled with it.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm sure all of us who ran campaigns and have done doors know that not everyone looks at their front door.
It was something about Ohio Ministry Code that says that you could not turn
Okay.
employees off without a certain amount of notice.
Yeah, I know with all the doors that, I'm sure I'm looking at 2 people who just ran, how many times you leave a note in the front door and 2 weeks later you drive by and it's still sitting there because they never use their front door. And a lot of people don't use it as much anymore. But the other question I would pose as well is with the letter going out, 2-week notice letter. I know that there has been some past concerns with the postage. With it coupled with that door thing I'm comfortable with, but if it becomes a problem, is there a need, or if we start to see a problem develop, I think it's something we should be looking at in case we need to put a certified or some sort of confirmed delivery on there. It doesn't necessarily have to be signed by the homeowner, but something to show that it's been certified, that it's been delivered into that mailbox.
Something we can keep an eye on if it is a problem, and you know as well as I do, they can claim they didn't get it, and they had it all along too.
And I believe as well that you've reached out to the family on that.
They actually reached out to me,
Okay.
but yes, we have notified them of the $20 credit for the shut-off fee.
Okay. And we've updated them that we're changing the practices as well.
I actually thank them that this was one of those things that was brought to our attention, and we appreciate it whenever our residents bring issues to our attention such as this, and that it has changed our policy and practices, and hopefully we won't have this issue in the future.
What do we do about insufficient fund fees that were charged from accounts?
That, Councilwoman Attorney, that was changed by City Council ordinance, I believe it was ordinance 37-2020, to take the Rule 65 and the water regs, had $20 NSF for inside city, $30 for outside city. That was changed by that ordinance, and now it's administrative charges. The finance director lets us know when there's a change from the bank, and we just charge what the bank charges us.
I
Okay, because
believe
I'm
it's
sure,
currently $8.50.
I was gonna say, I'm sure we were charged that for this.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
So that's not waived until.
And I don't understand why they also didn't throw a fit with the bank. It was a bank.
They are.
Good, because we reacted to something that, and I'm glad too they brought, this came up, because obviously we needed to change our procedures. But also, it wouldn't have happened at all if the bank hadn't screwed up.
I appreciate
So-
bringing everything to attention, keeping
Yeah.
us updated. And if there's anything else that you see in the rules or any practices that
Oh,
you'd like us to
you're
review.
gonna get all kinds of stuff next year. You're gonna just love it.
Oh, I always look forward to trying to correct things and make things easier and less intrusive, so. All right, any other questions on this, or everyone comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay. And next is bringing up a item that we talked about at the last committee meeting in the service. This is the engineering design services for the Fort Meigs Multi-Use Path project and the Department of Public Utilities portion of the funds. One thing to let Councilman Van Huzenel, since you weren't here for that one, Brian was here and gave a presentation. The multi-use path is actually going to go all the way down to River Road. So it's not going to stop at Sutton Place that we initially had a conversation on. So it's going.
Is that part of this engineering service?
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Not part of the public utilities, but a part of the service side?
Correct.
So they have split that out?
We are funding this piece of legislation that you see before you from both the service and the utilities department. We are splitting it 50/50.
This piece?
This piece that you see
Which
right there,
which is engineering
which is engineering design for that.
all the way to River Road to Rockville
Yes.
Junction? Okay.
And we are trying to pass it now so that if there are trees that need to come down, we don't hit that season. Also, we have done it as a not to exceed, so the amount you see is worst case scenario. And hopefully we won't hit worst case scenario because there's been survey work already done that's in there and other work. But we wanted to make sure that we were fully funded for the project for worst case scenario because as everyone is aware, the ditch is collapsing. So we're almost at worst case scenario and we wanted to make sure we funded the project appropriately.
So is the GPD group the same one that did the engineering?
They are not. There
That's the
were
same
5
question I had.
individuals for the city of Perrysburg who looked.
Say that again?
There were 5 individuals for the city of Perrysburg who looked at the qualifications. Ohio Revised Code requires that we take the highest ranked applicant from the rankings of those qualifications. This was the highest ranked applicant from the 5 city employees who looked at it. They included administrator, city engineer, service, 2 from water, 2 from utilities.
The Bergman was the one that had done quite a bit of this, and they were 2 points off.
But we have to follow the code, so it
In
keeps
this,
us on
in this
us.
case, that's unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
I agree.
So that just should be
I'm not-
said.
Yeah.
That I actually said in the last meeting.
And you and I hadn't even talked.
Nope.
Yes, let's see that.
So how did we get from Sutton Place to River Road? How did we get that accomplished? Because that wasn't a part of the plan, I think, when we were talking about budget,
I think
which
the
wasn't that long ago.
I think the engineer did it. I don't have a good answer for you, I'm sorry. But it seemed like something that the city's new engineer understood was desired and worked to make it part of the project.
So there was an original budgeted amount, which did not include it. Has that budgeted amount changed?
I don't believe so, no. I don't believe so. I don't know the answer to that, though.
Okay.
I understand your question, and I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question.
We related Brian to have him, rather, from my understanding is everything's within the budget, but that's not a specific question that did come up.
And when you say Brian, you're talking about
The engineer, our city engineer.
Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay, I just want to make sure I
Yes.
have the right people.
And now the other thing that we didn't mention as well is trying to limit the reduction or the removal of many trees as possible. Of course, that's not something we can necessarily control how many, but to try to limit the impact as best as we can.
That's it.
Got any other numbers?
Oh. This is a big deal
This is a big deal.
for Perrysburg.
Taken like 5 years for us to get here.
Have you seen a compilation of everything, all the different studies that we've funded to get to this point? I mean, because as you know, there's at least 4,
There's,
Maybe 5.
They created the ditch manual, which we have in practice at this point. I mean, that's one thing that I know the city is utilizing that manual here on a regular basis. We've had a couple surveys done here to try to find out where the needs were to get a little more in depth, but I wish I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I know.
Not the number, but just, I mean, the number of times we've had to
Oh,
go
yes.
back for study.
This is the final step from everything I'm looking at this point.
Promise? No, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding. So,
I need Brian here to make that certification, but from everything I'm seeing here, I think we're at the light at the end of the tunnel on this.
For the ditch, as it were.
But as I don't know if you saw the photos of the ditch itself, but
I have.
there are areas that are starting to collapse now.
I
There,
understand.
GPD is a pre-qualified ODOT contractor, so
So when you were talking to Brian, this timeline for this engineering study to come in, and then having the money in next year's budget, will we be able to do the trees by April?
That's what he's indicated,
That's
April
the
1st.
yeah, he said he wanted it done by April 1st, because that's when
Done,
Betsy's.
meaning done this, done?
No, just
No, the
clearing
brush,
so they can,
clearing the trees.
if anything needs to
Okay.
come down and have it
Because if
done.
we don't do it by April, then,
We're waiting a whole other year.
right, then
But
we're
that's-
talking about it next year this time.
Right.
The conversation, because this did come up, I appreciate Jan, she mentioned that as well, but April 1st is when this will, their goal is for the city engineer to have all that stuff removed by April 1st.
Everything
If
that
anything that needs to be removed.
to be removed, that's a big difference. Because as you know, he says he wants to be selective. They're not gonna,
He meaning Brian?
right,
He meaning,
me and Brian, we're not gonna go in and clear cut it. We're going to only remove what we have to. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds,
so will that be based on the engineering study, or is that going to be based on Brian making that
Engineers,
decision?
isn't it? I was under the impression it was
I
engineers,
was impressed with the engineering that that's one of the.
This
factors that they're
engineer,
looking
not,
at.
or Brian?
not Brian,
Okay.
GPD, which is why he wants it done now, so. we
Because they're
can
gonna have to have a
start.
conversation as well with the ODNR.
Right. And there's multiple permits. I know he's gonna have to, get a, well, he knows too that he's probably gonna get Army Corps engineer. Those can be sometimes difficult, but not worse than, EPA, ODOT. I mean, not ODOT, ODNR. So. And those, it's based upon type of permit. I mean, you're dealing with ditch, that's, I mean, you got wetlands issues and stuff like that, that potentially could be part of this, so.
So the ordinance says 69,000, 70,000, right? That's the current portion.
So that's divided between,
No, you're looking at the,
That's pickleball.
courts.
All I did was go back to the money. All right, so
They-
the ordinance will read that it's 272 divided by, 271 divided by 2.
Correct.
yeah.
Okay.
And we know that ditches need cleaning before I even got on council.
Well, I think we saw that last survey as well.
Right.
That really showed that there are some areas that need assistance.
Right.
So I'm going to support this. And I can only hope, Alice, that our ditch cleaning process moving forward is enhanced compared to what we've had in the past. It's funny, you can look at the ditches for the county, for the state, and the feds. They're just always clean.
That's because they have a general maintenance program where they go through and, talking from personal experience, they go through and start at one end, and when they're done, they go back and start it over again.
And we don't seem to have that same methodology. Plus we preserve.
Right. And you
They
know,
don't.
and that's part of the problem. And the reason why they don't preserve is because their view of vegetation along the ditch can also impede ditch flow, which they don't want. Trees look nice on
And we
the,
don't consider that the same way?
I don't believe we do. If we're gonna be selective of not cutting down trees on a ditch bank,
No, I'm saying, so that's an aesthetic value, which
It
I don't
is.
disagree with, versus actually ditch maintenance.
ditch maintenance, I mean, you cut everything down from the top of the ditch down to the bottom,
No, I
that whole
understand.
bank.
I understand.
And it has to do with flow. You don't get good ditch flow, you get erosion that could possibly,
In which case?
Both cases, actually. You can get it coming off the fields and flowing down and getting,
No, right.
and the vegetation could potentially cause it to not go on down to the river. I mean, it's both ways. There's multiple, it's, would you not agree with me? Or?
Yes, Councilwoman Attorney, in the,
Well, we do have a difference here in Fort Meigs Ditch in that since the diversion channel was put in, it does have excess capacity since that diversion channel took a lot of the flow away. So it's got enough capacity, but we haven't had a history of keeping the ditches clean, and that's,
I mean,
where we are today.
the trees do somewhat stabilize banks, but they also are issues in not allowing the proper flow and causing.
I know it can go both
Yeah,
ways.
it can go both ways, but there are plantings that you could do on the sides that, I mean, there was a whole conversation when ODOT did the 25 bridge on what to put on that slope behind that lady's house by the wall.
Yeah.
So,
3-0.
3-0? All right, so that's a 3-0 recommendation coming from Public Utilities. And we'll have this conversation at council on Tuesday. I know there's a note on here to discuss the December meeting date. I know that's December 22nd. What we did for service is tentatively hold it unless there's nothing on the agenda by December 17th. We can make that determination to cancel. Is everyone okay with that?
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. And then in other business,
I'm sorry, Mr. Allison. So the plan is that we will not cancel service or public utilities for December yet. If by December 17th, we have no legislation for that, then the meeting can be canceled for the month of December.
That's
but however, we are planning to put the legislation forward in December.
okay.
We are? Yes. For,
I would say for the resident. they
No,
can't-
that's not going in.
Oh,
it's not.
Okay.
That's not correct.
Okay. So yeah, we'll hold off then. In other business, I do have two things I wanted to make mention. I know I brought this up a couple of years ago. I know another council member brought this up as well. I don't think we fixed it yet, but the water pipe on the sidewalk by the Shell gas station on 25 is still sticking out. And just want to see, is there any timeline on that at all?
Where are we talking about?
So right by the Shell gas station on 25 in Finley, if you go along the sidewalk, it's sticking out probably about a good 6-7 inches.
Which side of the show?
25,
In Finley.
yeah,
20, on the 25 side of the Finley?
25 side.
I looked at it.
No, you
Which way?
noticed it if you were
Which way is it sticking out?
sticking right out in the middle of the sidewalk.
Mr. Chairman, on that one, we did do a demo of equipment that would make it easier to adjust those valve boxes.
Oh,
I believe we've ordered the equipment and don't have it.
Okay. Okay.
So that, yeah.
there's a, Councilman Smith, there's a big difference
Okay.
between a valve box and a pipe sticking out.
It looks like a pipe to me.
It is, but it's a valve box.
So the other thing I want to make mention is actually two doors down from our house there, right off the sidewalk, there is a sewer grate in the right of way that is probably about 3 or 4 inches above the ground. And I wanted to make you aware of that as something that if there's a way to lower that, it's going to be a good idea. Primarily, I've noticed it before. I thought it was going to be a safety hazard, and then of course my son and I were out for a run, and he tripped and landed right on his chest, right on the corner. So he's okay, but just bruised on his chest. It's something that's close enough that someone falls on that could be a pretty dangerous.
I mean, it's something that you can just throw dirt around.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that needs to be
Yeah.
correct. I mean, it's high up enough where it's not just normal settling.
It's totally in the grass or is it?
It's totally in the grass,
Okay,
but
not in the
it's
grass.
probably about 2 inches from the sidewalk.
It's not,
Yeah,
And Mr. Chairman, you said
It's just
two
a
doors
manhole
down
cover.
from your house?
yeah,
Okay.
I can show you where it is on a
Okay.
map. But that's just one thing,
it should be at least grade.
yeah, that one's not graded. He was not happy, and he was looking forward for the run, and we got 2 houses down, and he was ready to go home.
I've done that before.
So, just like the tree roots.
Yeah.
That's the only other thing that I have. Is there anything else for anybody else in the committee?
I would like to clarify something I said. It's in, if we have a regular ditch maintenance program, which we were working on, I believe, then we won't get issues like.
We actually have that guy that was created
Right,
6 years ago, 5 years ago. Sound about right?
but,
No, probably 5 years ago.
2017.
and I've seen it, but are we sticking to it?
Well,
Other than Fort Max?
We're a little bit behind, but Councilwoman Materney, we do have this item that was scratched from the agenda. We do have quotations for 4 different ditch maintenance projects, and they were deemed not a dollar amount that had to come to council.
Okay, no, that's good because, I mean, it does affect flooding too.
Yeah, and I just think it's something we've neglected over the years.
Right.
And that's in part why we are where we are
You're absolutely 100% right.
with Fort Max.
I just wanted to clarify that. I agree with you on that.
With no other objections, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Okay,
All right.
was it easy?
There you go. Use that power.
All right.
Um,